Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. Today's album review is on Midnight Oil's third album from 1981 called Place Without a Postcard. This is Midnight Oil's second time on the channel, second appearance on the channel. I did review their 1990 album, Blue Sky Mining, which is their seventh album. I did give it a 72 out of 100. Which I was a little surprised at. You know, it's been a while since I heard that album, and I pulled it out, and that was sometimes when I start doing reviews on when I was choosing the first album to do for certain bands, I just kind of sometimes I flipped a coin, sometimes I just picked a name out of a bag, sometimes I just chose one, sometimes I chose one for the reasoning, like the last review I just did, Psychic TV. I pulled it out because that was the album that I first heard from them. You know, sometimes I might go with the band's first album, but sometimes I'll go, with a different album, and I chose that one for my first time, and it'd been a few years since I heard it, and I was as I was critiquing, I was really surprised how strong I thought the album was. I mean, I knew it would be in the high 60s. I thought mid 60s, but I didn't think it would be in the 70s. And the 72, to say it's a very good album it was a good sign. And when I was coming to choose the second album, I figured I'd go the opposite direction and go to an album, even more so to the opposite direction of an album that I had never heard all the way through. And of the first 10 albums or so of Midnight Oil's career, I've never heard their first three albums. So I figure I'd start with their third album. I'm not sure if the first or the second album will be probably towards my liking. I feel like if I was going to go any more towards into the 70s, I probably might not like. But I'll still check out their album. But I thought a good place to start would for a second album going into their earlier career would be here. In some ways, this album was sort of their breakthrough in Australia. It hit the top 40 in Australia, and it was their next album after this in 1983 would kind of start their cult following from around the world, and then of course it would go global big time with two albums later with Diesel and Dust in 1987, 88. But this is kind of their last, again, not this album, but this is, I figured I'd bring out this live DVD just to show, because I don't actually have this album, Place Without Postcard, but Armistice Day was the name of this live DVD that they came out with a couple of years ago. I think it was fairly recent, if I'm not mistaken. Um, maybe the last 4 years, but I think of recent as 4 years ago compared to stuff I'm reviewing that's 43 years old. So I thought it was fairly recent, but maybe it's been a couple of years. But Armistice Day is what it's called, and that track's on here. So I thought I'd at least put something Midnight Oil related to this album up here as a place card. Well, I like to put something here as much as I can, even if I don't have the video. I have something by the artist at least, so I can visually see something that I'm talking about. Especially it helps when I'm putting up the video, knowing which video to choose. But yeah, this was kind of the album that broke them in Australia. Their first two albums, didn't even make a dent on the charts, and then this album kind of broke through them in New Zealand as well, and set them up for to be a cult album, a cult band for a couple albums, and then kind of break through. The sound is pretty much alternative rock. When I think of this album, towards this album is certainly a little bit more raw. They're still kind of finding their way a little bit, but all the sides of Midnight Oil. Well, I wouldn't say all the sides of the oil, all the sides of them, because I do feel like this album is missing some sort of ballads or some so a little bit more variation, like the other albums usually have like a couple tracks that are kind of a little bit more melodic and different. And this album doesn't really have that, so that doesn't have opportunities. But all the bones and all the band members are still here, and this has all the makings of what the potential of the band was, and builds upon the sound that's referenced in this album. Um, they have a sort of a sing along style. Like you do kind of like sing along with their songs a lot, like their choruses. Generally, the members kind of sing along with like the choruses and stuff like that. And there's um, so they seem to, they always have kind of like catchy choruses for the most part. This album, not as much as some of the other ones, the other albums. The guitars can have a good kind of jam sound, like in the track written in the Heart, which is one of my more favorite ones on here. But they also have like grooves to them too, like in Brave Faces, track number 2, and they never seem to like go up overboard like on guitars, and they always seem to be in a strong place with the band and never over the top. Again, here in this album, they're a little bit more raw. There's some good bass moments, which is you know normal with Midnight Oil as well. The track someone else to blame, particularly, I really like the bass in that track. Peter Garrett, the lead singer, obviously has a lot of charisma. He's very expressive, always has a good point of view and a good message. And one thing I appreciate is it's I don't think it ever becomes overbearing. Like sometimes when somebody talks politically a lot, like you kind of like how many times would you roll your eyes when Bono would talk about something political? You're just like, oh God, like no, please. Um, I don't think Midnight will ever go over the top. And I guess that's because they have like he has a good balance of um, traditional sort of songwriting and a bit of a message, and he never really like goes overboard in my mind. So I respect that a lot, and even if I don't like the even if I don't um I guess what I was gonna say was I can like normally if I can tune out a voice, then I don't mind what they're talking about too. And I think with Peter Garrett, for me, I don't know if it's because I've been listening to Peter Minato for a long time, or I've been aware of them for a long time. His voice doesn't necessarily I can tune out his voice if I wanted to. Let's just say that, and so I can tune out. Basically, since I can tune out his voice, I can tune out what he says if I want to, and maybe that's why he doesn't become overbearing. Um, where some people they might find it a little bit too much that he talks about political things a little bit too much, but I can kind of tune him out. And I still think, and I think that's where the sing along sort of sound that they have kind of makes you want to sing along to their music, like that kind of supersedes maybe the message of what's being said if it bothers you, because it always, I think with Monero you always get catchy music, and I don't think they necessarily break any boundaries or anything like that, but they're consistent, and I think the only thing this album is missing is a little bit of variation in the type of songs. It gets to the point where there maybe a little bit too many songs sort of sound the same, and that can be a thing with Midnight Oil at times in their early career. I would think probably if I took their first 4 albums, for example, or maybe even 5 albums before Diesel and Dust, I would imagine you can get kind of a little bored with the consistency of what the songs sound like. I could probably see that, and I hear that a little bit on this album, and that's probably those two things, that and the lack of some variation on this album, probably hurts this album. Having said that, I will say that all the songs are above good. Like they're all consistently good. Unfortunately, none are. I only have two songs rated over that are 3 stars or better, very good. So you have a consistent album, but I don't think any of the songs, a lot of the songs don't really stand out from each other. Um, don't want to be the one that is the first song, which was a single. The first song for them to hit top 40 in their own country. I think it's a good track, but nothing really outstanding on it. 2 stars. I do like Brave Faces a little bit better. 2.5 stars. Armistice Day is probably my favorite on the album, which is why I brought up this because it's Armistice Day. 3.25 stars. You can definitely the maturity is showing here. This is a little bit more tighter single, stronger single, and that's why I have it rated the highest, 3.25 stars. Someone Else to Blame, 2 stars. Basement Flat, 2.25 stars. It's interesting lyrics too. It's just kind of he's talking about his neighbors and how it could be a better situation, and him just kind of sitting around his apartment. It's kind of I don't know. It just perked my ears up because it's not. When you think of like Midnight Oil, like talking about the world's problems and stuff like that, and then you hear him talk about his basement flat, I was kind of like, is this the kind of Midnight Oil? Maybe this is a different kind of Midnight Oil, which kind of makes me kind of interested to hear their first two albums because it's probably a little bit more basic lyrics, and maybe not so worldly. So I would imagine if Peter doesn't talk about the world's issues, I'm just like, well, what does he talk about? And here you have an example of probably what was before. He's talking about his flat. So I find that kind of interesting, but maybe that's a precursor to the first two albums. I'll have to see. Track number 6, "Written in the Heart," is one of my top 3 songs on the album too. I gave it 2.75 stars. "Bernie," 2.5 stars. Quinella's Holiday, 2 stars. "Love's on Sale," 2 stars. "If Ned Kelly Was a King," 2 stars. And then my other favorite song on the album is called "Lucky Country," track number 11. I gave it 3 stars. So my overall stars on the album is 26.25 divided by 11 songs. That's 2.38. So that puts it right around 50, 56, 57, and that's pretty much where I have it. I actually got a 58 out of 100. I think it's a pretty good album. I think it's consistently some good songs. Just feel there's so I think that if it had like a bad song or two, I don't think I could say it was a pretty good album. But considering all the songs I feel that are above 2 stars, like I have to say it's a pretty good album. So I think it's consistent there. But again, it needs more variation and maybe doesn't really have the couple like for sure great songs. When I think of the opportunities of the album, those are to it, and you pretty much what you know and what you get from Midnight Oil is kind of what you expect. Like you get consistent alternative rock music, that's nice and sing along, that is strong. It's almost hard to say they have any. I guess they sort of have a little bit of a punk sound to them. Maybe that comes a little bit more out in the first two albums than even this album. But overall, I feel like this album is a band that's finding their way, maturing and fine tuning what works. It's a consistent album that doesn't really excite you, but it doesn't really disappoint either. Like it's consistently good, and yeah, I think it's a solid album considering, just I kind of would hope for a strong song, a really strong song, like here and there, like at least a 3.5 song in there somewhere. Like I got two out of 10 songs above 3 stars. When you look at their next album, read about it, and you know the powerful songs that are on that album. Two of them I'm blanking on. Uh, oh geez, I can't remember the. Anyways, well, that actually would be on here probably. Yeah, U.S. Forces. Um, read about it, and of course their popular one, which I'm blanking on it. or the it was their first it was their first Power and Passion. Power and Passion was I think their first like really really good song. But U.S.'s Forces and Read About It were also good songs. So the next album, in chronological order, their fourth album, I probably expect to be in the mid to high 60s, if not maybe break into the 70s. It'll be interesting to rank that one and then also rate their 1993 album, which I'm blanking on the name. It has Trugany and Outbreak of Love, and then also I still got to do Diesel and Dust. So it'll be interesting to see if any of them can outdo Blue Sky Mining, which got a 72 out of 100. That'll be interesting. But I'll still go back and uh, review their first 2 albums, and then I also got to rate their last couple albums, which I'm excited to hear. I did see Midnight Oil on their last couple tours, and their going away tour, and then I saw them in 2018. I think it was right before the pandemic, 2019, somewhere in there. And I was really excited to hear on the last tour um, the song called "Resist," which I really really liked. So I'm still hoping to get that album and check out that album. And this channel will be a good place to sort of debut my that album for me, and then also kind of give my first thoughts on that album, because I really like the sound of that single from the album, again called "Resist." I think the album was called "Resist" as well, but looking forward to hearing that album. But yeah, Midnight Oil's Place Without a Postcard, their third album, gave it a 58 out of 100. I think it's a pretty good album overall, consistent, just kind of missing some variation and a few really kind of upper tier Midnight Oil songs to really kind of push this into the 60s and higher. But unfortunately, it doesn't have those. But it's still a worthy album. Not an album that I own, but one that I've been wanting to check out. So glad I got a chance to check it out. Yeah, that's my review for that. I was going to ask you, what is your favorite three, in order, what are your favorite 3 Midnight Oil albums? All right, thanks so much.